What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly Sports History for January 25th, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Thursday edition of the podcast, a rainy Thursday. I am going to say right now, there is a lot that I'm going to need your help with to just understand and really I'm going to need you to explain some things to me. More on that in a minute. But let's start with our question of the day recap. I asked you, out of Rollins, Abreu, and Utley, which, if any of them, should be in the Hall of Fame. And you guys were all over the place with this, which is really what I expected. But for the most part, the consistent theme was Rollins should be in. Abreu is close. He's borderline. And then Utley maybe with the Veterans Committee, which I still don't even see that. And this is where, first place, I'm going to need your help. Explain to me Chase Utley's, Explain to me Chase Utley's Hall of Fame case. Make it make sense to me because I don't see it. Like I said, I think Rollins should be in. I think Abreu has the numbers, and some people questioned whether he was clutch. I know there's a lot of people in the camp that he loafed, especially when he was in the field. Despite winning a Gold Glove at one point. And I know my brother is one of those ones in the camp where he'll say, oh, well, it was a lifetime achievement Gold Glove, not because of what he did. Maybe that's right. I don't know. And I think that he's the one that's compelling that maybe the Veterans Committee. I don't get Chase Utley. So please, someone out there, explain to me why. Make me see what you're seeing that says Chase Utley's a Hall of Famer. And again, I like Chase. I told you before, his jersey's right behind me in the closet. I just don't understand and see how he is a Hall of Famer. Yes, I know there are people in the Hall of Fame with worse numbers than him that maybe don't deserve it. And that's another issue, another debate. But strictly looking at Chase Utley, to me, and I know a lot of people used this yesterday, the eye test, Chase Utley doesn't pass the eye test. It is the Hall of Fame, not the Hall of Very Good. And, I mean, I would question that Bobby Abreu probably is higher on the Hall of Very Good than Chase Utley. And then, like I said, I think Rollins is in. But help me make sense. Let me know, 267-495-8531. Send a voicemail. Send a text message. Make me a believer that Chase Utley's a Hall of Famer, because unfortunately I don't see it. Maybe if he had stayed healthy throughout his career and didn't miss all that time with his knees. If you remember, there was a point in time where they thought he was going to have to retire because he missed so much time because his knees just weren't getting better. So make me believe it. 267-495-8531. Send a text message. Leave a voicemail. Make me a believer. That's the first place where I need your help. I'm going to need your help here in a minute too. All right, quick housekeeping note. Excuse me. I cannot get rid of this tickle, and I apologize. It's very unprofessional. All right, I need your help. Let's get the YouTube channel up over 100 subscribers. Go subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're watching it, because I know you are. I can see the analytics. Please just go subscribe to the YouTube channel. The quicker you guys do this, the less I'll stop bugging you on it. But once I get to 100, it kind of opens up some doors with the algorithm and things like that. So go like and subscribe. Jimbo_Mont. Final housekeeping piece. Let's take down some soccer moms. And I know that sounds funny, but Girl Scout cookie selling is ruthless. And I'm telling you, these moms, like between their flyers, their videos, the things I'm seeing on Facebook, Twitter, all this stuff, like they're going at it. So let's use this platform for good. Buy some Girl Scout cookies and hook my girl Ella up. All the information you need is down in the link. They're trying to raise money for her troops so they can go on a camping trip, which the girls are super, super excited about. So go buy some Girl Scout cookies. Every one you want. The peanut butter patties, Samoas, even though I don't even know if you're supposed to call them that anymore. The caramel delights, the lemon, you name it, they're all there. We have plenty out in the living room, and the lady who supplies, our supplier, is right up the street, so I can get them. So go hit the link, buy some Girl Scout cookies, hook Ella up. If you have any questions or you're local in the area and need delivery, I can help out however I can. Go hit the link, hook up Ella. Let's take down some soccer moms and use this platform for good. And then, soccer moms, if you're listening, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'd appreciate it. All right, Flyers news. And there's a lot more smoke now than what there was yesterday with this whole Hockey Canada sexual assault case. There are now 5 total NHL players who are on leave for personal reasons. And the Ontario police did make a statement. And ultimately, it seems like charges are going to be filed against these 5 players. Monday, February 5th is when they're going to have an update. And again, there's tons of smoke. The speculation is they're giving them all a chance to turn themselves in before the charges are filed. But it does not look good for Carter Hart and the other 4 guys. It's from what I've read about it, it's just disgusting. And if this is true, and again, right now, nobody's been charged or convicted of anything. But if Carter Hart's done, if this comes out and what happened is true, I don't see how he continues to play, and I don't even think that that's important at this point, because there are apparently, from what my understanding, there's a lot of victims, and this is like a systematic thing that kind of happened with. I don't know. There's a lot of things going on with Hockey Canada right now. And again, none of this is official. This is a lot of speculation, but they always say where there's smoke, there's fire. And this is where, if you remember back to fire safety, you're down on the ground, you're crawling under the smoke because there's a shitload of smoke with this. And quite frankly, it's utterly disgusting. So hopefully they kind of turn themselves in, are able to get these charges filed, and hopefully get justice for these victims, because it's just... Don't want to go on an old man finger wag rant, so I'll just leave it at, let's hope for the victim's sake that this is a speedy thing and justice is served. But it does look like there is a lot more to this story that's going to come out. And again, yesterday there was some smoke. There's a lot more smoke today. More on that as the story develops. Sixers are in action tonight against the Pacers. They start a 5-game road trip. They go out to the West Coast. They have to play Denver again, Golden State, Utah, Indy, and I forget who the other team is. Might be Sacramento. Just trying to think of the teams right there. But tough 5-game swing. Lots of changes going on in the East. Miami's making some moves. We all know Doc is officially named the Bucks coach, which again, I still crack up of the immovable force versus the immovable force, but we'll see how it goes. He does have Giannis, who's good, Dame Lillard. We'll see kind of what happens. And Doc was always good in the regular season, so it's going to be a tight race. Probably Celtics likely are going to go away with the 1 seed. It's going to be a tight race for that 2nd through 4th and 5th seeds in the East for the Sixers and the Bucks. Cleveland's right there. The Knicks are right there. So hopefully Doc just does his best impersonation of himself, and we kind of. I don't know. I mean, I think if it was anybody else, it would make me nervous. But I think Nick Nurse summed it up best, and I appreciate his honesty on this too. And basically, he said, "Yes, I'm rooting against," because I guess the Griffin, the old coach of the Bucks, is one of his old guys. I can't think of the guy now. He played for Villanova that just got traded from the Heat to. I think it was Charlotte. I forget who even got traded to. Lowry. Lowry was one of his guys, and he says, yeah, like I'm concerned about them. I want to check on them. But, I mean, ultimately, he's like, I root against the teams in the East. So it was refreshing for me to hear that, because so many times people are like, oh, I don't pay attention to that. I focus on this. And he said, yo, we got to take care of ourselves. But the fact that he said, yeah, I mean, I check the standings and see where we're at. It's refreshing, because I feel like so many times coaches aren't honest, and we'll get more into that when we get to the Eagles in a minute. But 5-game road trip starting for the Sixers. Looking forward to see. Hopefully they can go at least 3-2 on this trip. With some tough games, but we'll see. Philly Goat, though. I've been telling you about this. They have you covered for your Philly sports-based apparel. They have the Joel Embiid shirts. They're phenomenal. They have the Spectrum shoes to match. I mean, you can get the Believe shirt. They have Philly. Just go check it out. Get the Believe shirt. But I'm like these shoes. Like I'm super excited. It's rainy today, so it wouldn't be a good day for them. But as the weather eventually is going to start getting warm, I cannot wait to get some of these shoes. Go check out the canvas loafers, all the t-shirts and sweatshirts they have there. PhillyGoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off. It's not too early to do your spring shopping. Get it together. I'm telling you, you won't be disappointed when you see it. PhillyGoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off your order. They have your Philly sports-based apparel needs covered. If you're an old school guy, I'm pretty sure they have some Wilt Chamberlain stuff on there. That just go check them out. You won't be disappointed. PhillyGoat.com. Promo code Jim Montgomery. All right, Eagles news. And let's start with the fact that they interviewed Gerard Johnson for the offensive coordinator position, quarterback coach at Houston. Don't really know much about him, but seems like he's did a decent job with C.J. Stroud this year. So we'll see. I mean, so that means Jared Johnson and Cliff Kingsbury now have interviewed for the position. Vic Fangio got let go by the Dolphins and seems to be the favorite to be our defensive coordinator. And I'll be honest with you, I know there's a lot of people like that are split on this, and I know I have a couple different text chains, and one people are like, "Oh, great, Vic Fangio," and I'm not necessarily against the Vic Fangio signing. He came in and worked with Gannon last year, so the players already have a sense on who he is and what he's about. He got screwed, basically. I think the story was he asked Gannon if he was going to stay. Gannon said, yes, I'm staying as defensive coordinator. So Vic Fangio left to take the job in Miami, and then Gannon left, which I think probably would have meant Fangio would have been our defensive coordinator this year. He has an NFL pedigree. He does run a 3-4 defense, I think, and I don't know if we do. Like everybody, like some people are like, oh, we don't have the personnel to run a 3-4. I think we do. I think with the Georgia guys, and we got Hassan Reddick, like we have guys that can fit into that. And truthfully, got to put your faith in Howie on this one that he will make sure we get the people we need. It does go fly in the face of the whole linebacker thing. And I'll get more into that when we get into the press conference yesterday. But I'm not opposed to Vic Fangio. I think he's no nonsense. I think he has that pedigree. He's going to command respect because he's been around more so than what happened with Desai this year. But we'll see. Hopefully there's more news on that. I'm sure they're going to interview some other people as well. They were kind of mum on what they were going to do. But so let's get into the press conference because there's definitely a couple things to go into. First and foremost, obviously Nick Sirianni's coming back. I don't think that comes as a shock. I don't think it's a surprise. However you feel about it, it is what it is at this point. Howie said based on his reputation, and saw some people ripping him for beating up on bad teams. Our old friend Marcus Hayes. But I mean, you can only play who's in front of you on the schedule, and they have beaten some pretty good teams too over the time. And, I mean, yes, it's a small sample size, 3 seasons, but he is the winningest coach right now in Eagles history. So I've been saying all along, I think he deserved this year to kind of fix it and make sure it got right. When he was pressed and asked about the offensive coordinator position and whether it be his offense or the new guy, he was all over the place, and I'm kind of shocked. And this is, again, where I'm going to need your help on this one because I listened to the press conference start to finish just like everybody else did. And on 95 on WIP, and I was listening on the way to take my son to basketball, and whoever the guy is after the afternoon show basically said he's just a figurehead coach, blah, 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 blah. And I heard a little bit, reading some things and articles that basically they've neutered him. And I didn't get that sense. I did not get that sense. And this is where I'm going to need your help because maybe I missed something. But he said the offensive coordinator will be bringing in the scheme and will be in charge of the offense. I think that to me is what I was asking for. I want an offensive coordinator who's going to be able to install his offense. Should Nick Sirianni, the head coach, be have input? Absolutely. And he said that. He's like, I think we should keep some things. And I don't take that as a stripping him of power type thing. I think that is more maybe he's like, you know what? This didn't work out the way it was last year. He admitted that the offense got stale, which it did. The defense is adjusted to it. But as the head coach, you have so many other things to almost concern yourself with. And everybody's comparing it to like a CEO type. And I don't know. Like, I don't see where the issue is, to be honest. Like, I'm not seeing this as he's losing power. He said, I will be, if that means I'm the head coach of the team. I'm not the head coach of the offense or the head coach of the defense. That, to me, is what you have coordinators for. And then the head coach oversees it. And, I mean, I look at my job position right now. I'm the assistant principal for grades 3 to 5. I have a principal above me. And there's also an assistant principal for grades K to 2. She's in charge of K to 2. I'm in charge of 3 to 5. My boss oversees everything. My boss has a ton of input. I kind of run my things and I have my plan. My plans don't always go fully into effect because I take input from my boss, basically the head coach. I'm like the offensive coordinator over here. My boss is the head coach. Her hands are all over the elementary school because that is her job. I have a focus on 3 to 5. That is my primary focus. So she sits in meetings, she gets asks questions, she's aware of what's going on. Same way with K to 2. So I don't necessarily see what the big issue is here. Sirianni said if that means I have to sit in more defensive meetings, and I think what that means is yes, you should, as the head coach, sit in some more defensive meetings. I think that is ultimately kind of what happened this year was he was let the defense sort of go, and all of a sudden it snowballed. We talked so much about the snowball. So, I mean, if that means he lost some power because he's bringing in an offensive guy, whether he was told to do this or whether he's doing it on his own, it kind of was unclear. But, I mean, yeah, I think a defense or an offensive coordinator should bring in their scheme. I think the head coach should have some things in it. And they should keep some things that they were doing because they do have some things that were successful on that offense. It did get stale. They need to spice it up a little bit. I don't see what the problem is. Defensively, yes, you need to nobody has an issue with the defensive coordinator bringing his scheme in. It's because Nick Sirianni is an offensive-minded coach. I mean, I don't know. I think it's a stretch, and I think – and again, I'm digging my own grave here with Philadelphia media, but I think this is what people talk about when they say the media is impossible. Because I watched the same press conference and I did not get it as, and maybe my experiences are different, but I didn't take it as a stripping of power. I took it more like they need to have a more collaborative approach, and I got the sense that maybe it was Nick Sirianni pushing his offense. Like the way the dynamic was last year, I don't know. Was it Nick Sirianni pushing his offense on Brian Johnson? Was it him trying to give Brian Johnson the opportunity to call his own offense, and then it wasn't working? So Nick Sirianni, because he has the offensive mind, I don't know. But to say it's a loss of power, I don't get it because, like I said, I look at my job, and that is essentially how our setup is in our school. And I have a lot of influence over the way things work in the 3rd through 5th grade. But at the same time, my boss puts down and gives a lot of input and has her hands all over 3 to 5 too. So to say that he's just the figurehead and there for culture, yeah, he needs to focus on the culture because the culture ended up bad. So I mean, maybe taking some of that and making sure he's in tune with what's happening with his team, maybe that'll help with Jalen's leadership. You never know. But I don't see it as a loss of power, but help me. Maybe I missed something, and maybe I'm looking at it in a different lens than what is reality. But that is the question of the day. What are we feeling about Nick Sirianni and his power now after this press conference? 267-495-8531. Let me know. Is he a lame duck coach? Should he, let me know. I might be missing something here. But how are we feeling after this press conference yesterday? Howie did mention, and this is the last thing I wanted to mention, linebackers. He was like, that narrative is not true. I disagree with that because, 20 whatever years of, or I guess he's going on 30 years now that Jeffrey Lurie has owned the team. Linebackers have always been an issue. We talked the other day about the NFC Championship game against the Buccaneers where linebackers killed them and they would have went to the Super Bowl. So, but he said, hey, at least he acknowledged that the years they went to the Super Bowl, linebackers were a strength of the team. So at least he's seeing that. But that's the question. How are we feeling about Nick Sirianni after this press conference? 267-495-8531. Help me out because, again, I could be completely missing this and reading it wrong. Also, while you're at it, check out my boys over at the Clashing Conferences podcast, playoff edition. No more NFC East teams, which means I have a feeling this week's episode is going to be a ton of banter back and forth between the four teams, especially with everything that's going on between the Cowboys and the Eagles and coaching and all of that. So go check them out, the Clashing Conferences podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. All right, we're going to just let the good times roll today. Today we're going to go back to 1981. And on this day in 1981, it was Super Bowl 15 down in New Orleans, a rematch of a Week 12 matchup between the Oakland Raiders and the Philadelphia Eagles. Just like 2004 when they beat the Falcons, we talked about that the other day. That team got over the hump. This team really got over the hump after the NFC Championship game when they beat the Cowboys. They ended up splitting with the Cowboys that year, but they were their boogeyman, and they were able to get over that hump and beat them in the NFC Championship game. They won the division that year. They were the 2 seed, edging out the Cowboys for the division on a tiebreaker. Setting up this matchup in Super Bowl 15 with the Oakland Raiders in Super Bowl 15 down at the Superdome. The offense of that team struggled down the stretch. They lost 3 of their last 4 games heading into the playoffs, or else they would have ran away with the division. And they struggled early in that divisional playoff game against the Vikings. The defense was really, really good, especially in the playoffs. But more on Super Bowl 15. Rod Martin intercepted Ron Jaworski's first pass, or intercepted a pass of Ron Jaworski's in the first quarter. Set up an early touchdown for the Raiders by Cliff Branch. Later in the first quarter, Jaws threw a 40-yard touchdown to Rodney Parker that would have tied the game up, but it was called back due to an illegal motion penalty on Harold Carmichael, and then the Eagles just never really recovered from there. Late in the first quarter, the Eagles had put some pressure on Jim Plunkett. He scrambled, rolled out, tossed the ball just over Herm Edwards' outstretched hands to Kenny King, who took it 80 yards for the touchdown, and that was basically the end of the Super Bowl. And I'm friends with Kenny King's son, and Kenny never lets me forget the fact that his dad basically broke the Eagles' hearts in the Super Bowl. Thanks for that, Kenny. I know you're listening. But it was 14-3 at halftime, and then it was 24-3 before the Eagles finally scored a touchdown, losing 27-10. But that 80-yard touchdown to Kenny King really broke the Eagles' backs that game, and they just never recovered. The offense, again, struggled when the lights were the brightest, the offense struggled. Jaworski threw 3 interceptions and had a fumble, so he turned the ball over 4 times, which just is not good. And this team was not necessarily built to come back. They were built to get a lead and then let the defense sort of go after them. But on this day, back in 1981, the Eagles lost Super Bowl 15 to the Oakland Raiders, 27-10, in a game that really they cost themselves. And I think that touchdown pass that was called back in the first quarter to Parker, excuse me, may have made the game a little bit different. But but I think it was demoralizing. And then to have the Raiders come right down with an 80-yard touchdown on a play that they played good defense on, and Plunkett just made a good pass just over Herm Edwards. You can watch the replay of it. Herm Edwards, it was just the perfect storm. The Eagles played halfway decent defense on that, but it was not meant to be. The Eagles lost the Super Bowl 15, 27-10. They would go back in Super Bowl 39, lose before finally winning in Super Bowl 52. All right, finally, our free agent who had a fresh start in Philly, and this is courtesy of a listener from a couple weeks ago. But today is Pete Rose, and Pete Rose signed a 4-year, $3.2 million contract in 1979 that at the time made him the highest paid player in all of professional sports. It wouldn't last long. I forget who it was, but I think even going into the 1979 season, it might have been Dave Winfield for some reason. I will look into that. And I don't know why Dave Winfield. It's either Dave Winfield or Dave Parker. I feel like the guy. Either way, I'll look into it. But Pete Rose was the highest paid player for a little while after he signed this contract with the Phillies. And he didn't necessarily want to leave the Reds, but they wouldn't negotiate with him. They said, here's our contract, take it or leave it. And that whole Reds team just really got old fast. They won the World Series in 1976 and just kind of all of a sudden started getting old. But a lot of the players still had some tread left on the tires, including Pete Rose. Because he was playing third base at the time, Mike Schmidt was already there, so he moved to first base. And they abruptly missed the playoffs in 1979 after going and winning the division 3 years in a row. But that year they had a lot of injuries with the pitching staff, so they still had one of the best lineups, one of the best teams in the league. So hopes were high coming in 1980, where they won the first World Series championship in the team's history. They also then came back and won the first half division championship in 1981. There was a strike, which really messed up the Phillies' momentum, and then they got swept out of the playoffs. I think it was a sweep. Either way, they lost to the Expos in the playoffs in 1981. They won the National League Championship in 1983. While he was in Philly, Pete Rose set the National League hit record. All told, he was 5 years here in Philly, 826 of his over 4,000 hits. He hit .291, won the Silver Slugger in 1981, was an All-Star game from 79 to 80, All-Star from 79 to 82. He showed the Reds basically that he still had more in the tank. Made a stop in Montreal before going back as a player manager in Cincinnati. But today's free agent who had a fresh start in Philly and one of the most important free agents in Philadelphia sports history because he finally got the Phillies over the hump, and that is Pete Rose, who, if you take away his gambling and everything and just focus on his playing career, was one of the top 5 at least to ever do it, if not top 3. So today's free agent who had a fresh start in Philly is Pete Rose. On this day in 1981, the Eagles lost Super Bowl 15 to the Oakland Raiders, 27-10 in a game that really they were never in. Just bad from the start and just couldn't get it together. Be sure to answer the question of the day. How are we feeling about Nick Sirianni and the Eagles after yesterday's press conference? 267-495-8531. Do you have confidence? Are you just like whatever, like everybody else? Did I miss something with the whole stripping of power? Let me know. Sixers in action tonight against the Pacers. We'll have more on the Carter, Hart, and Hockey Canada story as it develops. Again, a lot of speculation. Don't want to jump the gun on anything, but there are victims, so I think it's important to keep that in mind and not necessarily worry about whether or not these guys play hockey again, because there are victims of sexual assault out there, and I'll kind of just leave it at that. Again, don't always want to get too political on it, but as more of this story develops, we'll get to it. Be sure to hook my girl Ella up with some Girl Scout cookies. All the info you need is in the description. Go and subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mott. Hook a brother up. We need it. The more subscribers we have, the more I can do, and the bigger we can grow this thing. We're getting there. So many good things happen. So many good things lined up. So let me know. 267-495-8531. Let me know your thoughts on Nick Sirianni and the Eagles. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History. I'm Jim Montgomery. Stay dry and go have yourselves a Thursday. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.